Today we're going to briefly explore the writings of Emmanuel Swedenborg and their surprising relevance to the Exvangelical movement.
So, for those who might not be familiar, could you briefly introduce both Emmanuel Swedenborg and the Exvangelical movement?
Absolutely. Emmanuel Swedenborg was an incredibly accomplished Swedish scientist and philosopher in the 1700s who, in his mid-50s, experienced a profound spiritual awakening. He spent the rest of his life writing extensively on theology, offering a unique interpretation of Christianity. The Exvangelical movement, on the other hand, is a more recent phenomenon. It's a social movement of people who have left evangelical Christianity, often due to negative experiences or disagreements with its doctrines and culture.
That's helpful context. Now, the question is, how could an 18th century figure like Swedenborg possibly relate to the 21st century Exvangelical movement?
Many of the concerns voiced by Exvangelicals today seem to have been anticipated in Swedenborg's writings. For example, Exvangelicals often critique the rigid authority structures and literal interpretations of the Bible found in some evangelical circles. Swedenborg, in his time, also questioned the prevailing interpretations of Scripture and emphasized its inner, spiritual meaning rather than just the literal sense. He also rejected the traditional doctrine of the Trinity as illogical and unbiblical, which is a point of contention for some leaving evangelicalism as well.
That's a fascinating parallel. It sounds like Swedenborg was already pushing back against some of the things that are now causing people to leave evangelicalism centuries later.
Exactly. He also presented a view of God as primarily loving and merciful, rather than wrathful and punitive, which resonates with Exvangelicals who have experienced fear and spiritual abuse within certain evangelical organizations. His emphasis on living a life of love and service to others as central to faith also aligns with the desire for a more ethical and practical faith, often expressed by those leaving evangelicalism.
So, it seems there are some clear overlaps in their critiques and focuses. What about the differences? Where do Swedenborg and the Exvangelical movement diverge?
While there are similarities, there are also significant differences. Swedenborg's theology is a very specific and detailed system based on his claimed direct revelations from the spiritual world. The Exvangelical movement, on the other hand, is much more diverse. It's defined by a shared point of departure rather than a unified set of beliefs. Many Exvangelicals are also grappling with issues of social justice and inclusivity. These may or may not align with Swedenborg's 18th century context, although there are sections of the New Church, which took its cue from Swedenborg, who exhibit the same concerns for social justice and inclusion, and many Exvangelicals would probably feel right at home there.
That makes sense. So, if Swedenborg were alive today and engaging with the Exvangelical movement, what challenges or cautions might he offer them?
Yes, that's a thought-provoking question. Based on his writings, I think Swedenborg might caution against a purely reactive stance. While he himself critiqued the Christianity of his time, his ultimate aim was to demonstrate that it is possible to hold a rational understanding of divine truth. He might encourage Exvangelicals to move beyond simply identifying what they've left and to actively seek and define a positive spiritual path forward. I guess he'd say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
That's a good point. A movement defined only by what it's against might struggle to find long-term direction.
Exactly. He might also emphasize the importance of a structured approach to understanding Scripture. Swedenborg dedicated decades to his detailed interpretation of the Bible. While encouraging questioning, he might also advocate for a deep engagement with sacred texts to find deeper meaning and guidance.
So, a balance between critical thinking and seeking spiritual depth.
Precisely. Finally, given his own claim of divine revelation, Swedenborg might encourage a careful discernment of spiritual experiences and the source of truth. While valuing personal autonomy, he might also caution against dismissing all forms of religious authority and the wisdom found within spiritual traditions.
That's a really insightful perspective. It seems Swedenborg, despite living centuries ago, offers some surprisingly relevant points for the Exvangelical movement to consider.
Absolutely. His writings highlight the ongoing tension between tradition and individual interpretation and the enduring human quest for authentic spiritual meaning.
Well, this has been a fascinating discussion.
If you'd like to learn more about Emmanuel Swedenborg or the Exvangelical movement, we've included some resources in the description below. And feel free to throw us a question in the comments. Thanks for watching. As always, keep it friendly, and I look forward to talking to you next time.